As the Java heats up, so too might your conversations. So this morning in our spotlight, we are talking improving parent-teen communication.
Inside your spotlight this morning, we are definitely discussing improving the communication between parents and teenagers. To do that, we welcome back Dr. Asha Pemberton, paediatrician and adolescent specialist. Good morning to you, Dr. Pemberton.
Good morning, Rockers, and happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you too. Thank you so much for joining us yet again on the Now Morning Show. We definitely appreciate it. And this morning we want to chat about the communication between parents and teens. First of all, let's start with what are some of the challenges often faced in that communication between parents and teenagers.
All right, so getting right into the meat of the matter. So as children become adolescents, so anytime around puberty, what starts to happen in addition to the dramatic physical changes of puberty are a lot of cognitive or brain changes. And parents will pretty much universally identify that parent-tween or parent-teen conflict begins at that point in time. And this is because young people, in their attempt to individuate and become more independent, they have a stronger point of view and they feel that much more empowered to share their points of view. And for parents who are ill-equipped or not quite ready or feel even a sense of challenge, that is when the conflict begins. So pretty much at the beginning of adolescence, parent-tween or parent-preteen dynamics change because the ways in which young people think start to change.
Is there a way for parents to adjust their thinking to be able to meet this, or is it that we have to find the middle ground for both parties to adjust?
So absolutely, the number one recommendation is for parents to take time to understand their children and their preteens, to understand the young people that they are growing and developing into, and to understand some fundamentals of adolescent development. So really, really quickly, in early adolescence, after the onset of puberty, young people become very, very rigid and concrete in their thinking, and this is normal. So what that means is that, 12, 13, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds are very black and white and rigid in their points of view. And so even though they will argue loudly and passionately about certain topics, parents need to understand that they don't necessarily have all of the capacities to think more abstractly and more broadly. And what this looks like in real time is the young person is defiant. This is how it has to be. This is what I saw online. This has to be true. And the parent is trying to extrapolate and say, well, it could be true in these contexts, but not universally. And young people just don't get it. And so parents are encouraged to tailor their communication strategy to the development and understanding of their young person, and to also be flexible in their expectations of what young people understand through the course of development. As they grow and as they develop and as their cognitive capacities develop, their ability to have more rational conversations naturally improves.
Now, should that process have started before the teenage years in terms of having those conversations where it's like, life isn't really just black and white. There's shades of gray in between. There's things that you need to understand and context that you need to put in place. So before they get to that stage of defiance, that stage of rigid, this is how it should be because I think it is supposed to be this way. Should we be having those conversations before the teenage years?
Yes, absolutely. So even though we're talking today about parent-teen communication, parenting strategies in the communication context really begin at the start of parenting. And the thing about parenting is that when you become a parent, even for the first or the fifth time, nobody provides you with a manual. Each child is different. Even within a family structure, siblings have different experiences of the same parents, which makes sense, right? So where you and I are today and how we're parenting our children today or your first child today is different if you have a baby next year, right? So even within family, siblings have different parents. And so for parents, it is a bit of it's a lot of art in the science to continue to adjust and tweak your communication approach, which really starts at the very beginning and needs to continue flexibly into adolescence. But the missing piece, or I think where parents often get a bit tripped up, is the recognition that your adolescent teen child is not the same as your younger child. They're becoming their own person, they're developing in their own capacities. So there needs to be that openness and that adaptability to accepting the person that your adolescent is becoming.
What if that person that you're adolescent becoming, you see it as not such a good thing? What if you
Right.
have challenges accepting that, all right, this is what you're choosing to do with your life, but I don't see long-term benefits in it. I'm unable to see it. You are unable to show me what the long-term benefits to this lifestyle that you're choosing can be or will be. How do I, as a parent, navigate that particular conversation?
Oh, I love that question. It's one of my favorite topics because I think culturally, as adolescents become older, parents often become exasperated or frustrated or more or less give up. And they think, well, you're big now, or you think you're an adult now, or you think you're a man or woman now, I'm just going to leave you. And that truly is an error. So what we know from the cognitive developmental space is that adolescence is actually complete well into the 20s. Most scientists agree that it ends at age 25, and that is when cognitive maturation is complete. So with that in mind, even if your younger adolescent is necessarily going down a path or making decisions that you don't agree with, it is to hold on and to go the course. And so creating that environment of healthy, positive communication puts parents in a better space to continue to guide and mentor and provide that wisdom for their young person, even when they're making decisions that are not optimal, understanding that there's still a lot of time to go. So I think many parents in our context give up too soon. The magical adult age of 18 does not, it may make you a legal adult, it may not make you a developmental adult. And so it's really about continuing that process of communicating with an open mind, reserving judgment, and allowing young people to feel safe. If there's one thing this Tuesday morning I want our listeners to take away is that tweens, teens, young adults connect with their parents and other people when they feel safe. And when they feel safe, they are most honest. And when they're most honest, you're best able to influence their choices and behavior.
Yeah, and if it is that they're being honest with you, then you can well, the reserving judgment part I think is the most difficult part. At least I can say for me, because so you get that piece of information or you see them going down a wrong path and you want to say, this not gonna work out for you, and I don't want to judge you, but this is a bad life choice that you're making. Like as a parent, it'll be difficult to watch it, but I do completely understand where you're coming from. I want to switch across to outside of the behavioral patterns. There are some conversations that parents need to have with their children during this time period. We spoke about puberty a little while ago. In terms of navigating that conversation, as you mentioned before, well, basically, the parenting is on-the-job training, right? Every time around.
Yeah.
How do you suggest, how do you advise that parents begin navigating the conversation of puberty, of sexuality, of those things that the birds and the bees conversations that seem to be so taboo in our society still?
Sure. So the first recommendation is to start early, right? So we still have too many adolescents entering puberty and have no idea what that it's all about. And that really, really is a travesty. So these are pre-adolescent conversations, ideally starting in childhood and starting with strict anatomic and health facts. I think culturally, because parents are uncomfortable and sometimes afraid to talk about these topics, they inject inappropriate humor, inappropriate slang terms for, anatomical sites, and that just makes the whole thing a big old mess, right? So it's about understanding how the human body is structured and how it works from early childhood and a focus on safety. So that's where those conversations should begin. Which parts of your body are private? Who should have and who should not have access to them, and what this all means. Those are really childhood conversations. Approaching later childhood, so anywhere sort of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, the conversations about puberty really ought to begin because healthy children at age 8, 6, 7, 8 can start, early signs, but certainly by 8, 9, 10, this is very normal. So before that, they do need to understand the growth that will happen, the sexual developmental changes that will happen from a physical context. And the big one are the emotions and feelings that will happen. So we need to inform young people that whilst it is normal to start to have feelings of attraction to other people, your actions and behaviors also have to be adjusted. And so unless they understand what's happening and understand the significance of what is happening, then you can see how it sets the stage for behaviors to be a bit uncontrolled. And ways to do it, use teachable moments. We live in an online digital community where there are lots of videos, movies, TV shows. Use real life moments and real life opportunities to start conversations. We acknowledge that, Tuesday morning, everybody's rushing around. It's vacation time, may not be the optimal time if you're trying to get out the door. But perhaps Tuesday night, you could be watching a family movie or a family, comedy, and, just use teachable opportunities and moments. As young people get older, use of quotes or pictures or imagery. So just short meme-like, getting into the culture of today, meme-like content also young people connect with, but everything should be grounded in fact and grounded in safety. And young people typically accept information when presented in those ways.
Grounded in fact and grounded in safety. One of the things that oftentimes parents get concerned about as well is the friendships that may develop during this time period. Because oftentimes we see them your children make a bunch of friends and a variety of friends. Some of them might seem like positive influences and some of them may not seem like positive influences. As a parent, how do you navigate that? I mean, without judgment, again, I imagine, but how do you navigate that educational process of, all right, I see that you're picking friends. What are you picking friends based on?
Right. And so again, coming into adolescence, your peers of young people start to occupy more importance to them than family. And again, this is normal in the context that when we consider the goal of adolescent development, the goal is to produce a fully functioning, independent, individuated adult. And I'm sure we can all think about adults in our lives who are not quite independent and not quite individuated, right? So for some people, adolescence doesn't quite end. And difficulty with social interactions is perhaps one of the most common reasons why that happens. So to get back to your question specifically, young people will make friendships, they will have relationships, they will connect with young people or other people. But if you recognize that these relationships are not supportive or toxic in some way, or even abusive or manipulative, as a parent, it is your role to intervene. How do you do that? It starts off again with having a solid base of communication. Your young person needs to see you as somebody they can come to in times of trouble and not someone to fear when things go wrong. And so that base of communication is important. Again, going back to our point about teachable moments, if you and your teen or preteen have that communication and you identify that their so-called best friend went to the beach on Sunday and didn't invite them because you are hearing them, mentioning that they're seeing pictures online, you could use that teachable moment and ask them, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the fact that there are 6 of you, but only 5 were invited to the beach? And allow them to honestly let you know how they feel. And then the next step is to guide and say, well, what would you do differently if you were hosting the beach live? I'm just getting into that example. And allow them to vocalize. Because the magic of adolescent parenting is that you can only interface and adjust what you know. So you have to understand what they understand, and then you're able to guide forward. Because if they see nothing wrong with being excluded, then in their minds, there's nothing to fix, right? So until they identify the concern or you're able to get to the heart of how they are feeling, it's really difficult to make an impact.
Understood. Is it ever too late for parents to start that communication process? Because I know ideally it should start from the beginning of parenting, like we mentioned earlier. But if I have a teenager and I'm listening to this conversation now and I'm saying, I want to be able to connect with my teenager. We've had a rough time at it because life was lifing and me and the other parent wasn't getting along for some time and it affected the relationship with the child or whatever the situation may have been. But I now have a teenager on my hands who's making decisions, who is going through that adolescent phase of puberty, etc. Is it ever too late to start that communication or to get that communication?
Never too late, never too late. Eternal optimism here. For a number of reasons, adolescence ends into the 20s. So magically at 17, 18, 19, even 22, young adults, emerging adults are still in a developmental stage. So it's never too late to start. And I dare say even beyond, if you are the parent of adult children, it's still never too late to improve communication. The methods may vary. The opportunities and the creativity will definitely have to vary. But again, as a parent, if your child, be they a child or an adult child, understands that you're coming from a place of love and security and wanting to connect and nurture, generally speaking, there is an openness to it. And so for any parent of an older adolescent who is listening this morning, feel empowered to continue to try. It's really all around being grounded in your own emotions. So take a moment to check yourself and how you feel about your parent-teen relationship. Accept certain aspects of their lives, particularly if they are older adolescents. Create the opportunities to interface in safe spaces with your young person. And again, it's really all about creativity tailored to your child or your young adult.
Dr. Pemberton, thank you so very much for joining us this morning. I think we'll leave the conversation there for now. I'm sure we will continue with more at a later date. So thank you very much for joining us this morning, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me again. Have a great day.
Take care. That's Dr. Asha Pemberton, pediatrician and adolescent specialist, chatting with us there about how to improve parent-teen communication. And like she mentioned, there's on-the-job training, so we have no choice but to just figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And some people can give us guidance, some people can suggest things. However, yeah, figure it out as you go. I love that.
Yay, parents!
I think godparents, aunties too.
Right.
We all in this together, but not as much
No,
as...
but that's true, right? Because one thing we didn't get to touch on is the relationships that other adults would also be forming,
Of course.
with the children, because there are some things that some children just may not feel comfortable talking to their
Yeah.
parents about, based on whatever the communication has been, and they could go to another trusted source.
There we go.
Trusted
Good
adult.
morning to my nieces.
You see? Auntie Ayinka to the rescue. Let's take a quick break and we come back with more on the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.
Come together.